Welcome to the Trading with Venus podcast. I'm your host, Raman Gill. I recently had the privilege to be on Trade All Markets podcast with Robin, and I would like to share that podcast here with you today. I hope you enjoy this interview.
Hey Robin, how are you?
I am great now that you're here. How are you?
I am good. I'm good.
Well, fantastic. What time of the day is it where you are?
It's 2 o'clock for me. I'm in the
Oh,
mountain time.
perfect, perfect. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Trade All Markets podcast. And I am very excited to speak to this special woman because she is coming to us from Canada. And her and I have been friends on Facebook. We've never met in person, but I feel like she's my sister from another mister sometimes because we have we have so much fun on Facebook together. And so this is great because you guys are going to get to hear from her on a professional level. And so I want to introduce to everybody for our podcast today. We are speaking with Raman Gill, also known as Trading with Venus. And so, Raman, the way this goes, so that you know, is it is just two ladies having a chat. And I'm going to ask you some questions, but it's very casual and it's an opportunity for people to get to know you, know more about what you do, and find out why you are one of our trusted experts at Trade All Markets. So how are you doing today?
I am good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm very happy to have you here. So what I want you to do to start off with is tell everybody a little bit about you so they get to know you a little bit more.
I am a trader. I do mostly Forex, even though I do analyze other markets like commodities. I take a look at the indexes as well, but mainly my focus is on the Forex. Aside from that, I am also a mom, wife, and just a regular person living my life.
Now, what part of Canada are you in?
I'm actually in Alberta, so we are I'm in the oil country.
Okay, all right. It was my plan before this pandemic to get over to Canada, Vancouver, which is like a easy little from Seattle. So I had planned to get over there. That was going to be my first area of Canada that I wanted to get to. But how long have you been living there?
I have been in Canada for about 21 years. And before that, I grew up in India and then I moved here to Canada. I used to live in Vancouver, actually. It's beautiful. We still have rental property there. My family's there as well. It's a beautiful place to visit, so I highly recommend it.
So now, what was the move like from India to Canada? Was that your decision or was that your family's?
No, that was my family's decision. Actually, I was quite opposed to moving. All my friends were there. Everything that I knew was there. And life was actually fairly comfortable there. So I didn't want to move. But my parents thought that this would be better for us kids in the long run. And I have to say, I think they were right. So it was their decision.
How old were you when you guys
I was
moved?
20. Oh, 20. I shouldn't have
Okay.
given away my age, though.
They won't catch it. Don't worry about it. They won't catch it. Now, were you studying or about to study something before that move? Was there an area that you were interested in before you got into Forex?
It's interesting. I was interested in doing business. So when I was 18, my family had land. So one of the things I wanted to do was I had a lot of business ideas that I wanted to start, and many of them were related to land just because we had land. One of them was I wanted to grow flowers because we had a tenant who used to lease land and grow flowers and then ship them to Holland. And he used to sell them there, and it was a good business. And that's what I wanted to do. I love flowers. I love gardening. So I was like, hey, this would be a great business. My mom didn't quite go for that though. She thought I was too young, too naive, and it was not the way things are here. So she wasn't really keen on that. So I thought, you know what, I'll go to school, I'll get a degree, I'll do an MBA, and then I will start my business. Then nobody can stop me. So that was my big plan prior to moving to Canada.
Now, did your parents, because it sounds like they were very influential, so did your parents influence what you went and took for school?
No, yes and no. So my parents wanted me to be a doctor. However, I tend to have a little bit of a fainting episode when I see blood, so it wasn't quite it wasn't the right career move for me. My parents were really set on me becoming a doctor because they thought I had the aptitude for it. So they wanted to see me be successful. My dad was an engineer, though. He was a mechanical engineer, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps, actually. And
Hmm.
my family thought being an engineer wasn't the right move for girls or women, and it was just better to be a doctor. So I had to have that fight a bit. But then when we moved here, I decided to go into IT. And IT is part of engineering in India. So I kind of did what I wanted to do, even though they were okay with my career choice, but they thought I would have done better as a doctor.
Now that's interesting because I have a granddaughter and my granddaughter wants to be an engineer. She will tell you if you ask her what she wants to do. She says she wants to be an engineer. So she's in STEM classes. She's very much thinking in that way. And in fact, my nephew had said to her, "Oh, I heard that you're going to school to be an engineer." And he said, "Have you thought about what company that you want to work for?" And she said, "My own." Like she didn't even skip a beat. She was like, yeah, my own.
That's awesome. You know what? I really like girls kind of going into those fields. It's interesting. My daughter she's 8 right now, and she's been asking me for a lemonade stand for 2 years now. And she was asking me, oh, so how do you make money? You just sit in front of the computer and you make money. And she wanted me to open an account for her. And actually,
Uh-huh.
unfortunately, my husband made the mistake of sort of he kind of rained on his parade and told her that she could not have an account under her name till she was 18. So I was a little annoyed at that, but you know what? Now that we are going through this era of recession times and with pandemic and everything else, even though that this is bad time overall, but I think this is a great time to learn some lessons that will pay dividends for years to come. So she has been wanting, so I talked to her about a year ago. We had a conversation where I told her that I would buy her some stocks for her birthday. And also, so she wanted to buy, I asked her what stock she wanted to buy. So I told her, pick something that you like. So she chose Toys R Us. I'm like, okay, they're going through bankruptcy. How about something else? But I was having this conversation with her just a couple of days ago. I was telling her that now the stock market has dropped, and it is my opinion that it will drop some more. Right now, there's a lot of money being put into the market by the government, actually governments around the world. But I think, so right now we are seeing the stock market go up, but I think there will be this day of reckoning because stock market is based on businesses. So if the business is not making profit, how can the business be worth more? right? So once everybody starts going back to work, that's when we will really see where everything is. And I think we'll have a dip before things go back up. So I was telling her that we are going to start following the price of stock. So we'll track it and then we will start investing in it. And I think in the next year or so, there will be some wonderful opportunities because the thing is, as bad as things are, the good thing as investors is that the world is on sale, right? Like the world was
Yeah.
on sale back in 2008, 2009, and
Uh-huh.
we are coming into that time again now. And it's a 10-year business cycle, right? We always tend to forget that. It's like, oh, like I do the same thing. I mean, I'm not above it all, but we tend to forget that there's a 10-year business cycle, and the market has been going up for the last over 10 years. It has been the largest bull market that we have seen in years. So now we're going to go through some downturn, and there will be some great opportunities to take advantage of. So now is a good time to start saving some money if we haven't in the past, but good time to keep an eye out for things.
So this is a perfect segue because you guys have just heard, you got you a little bit of advice there, a little bit. And so this is a perfect way for me to segue into our conversation about you and Forex. So do this for me first. Tell our audience that is listening, what is Forex exactly?
Forex is when you exchange one currency for another. So there are different ways to exchange currencies. You can do futures, you can do options, you could do ETFs, but the spot Forex is where we basically get the price that's offered on the spot. So if you're exchanging euros for US dollars, there will be a price coded. So for $1, you get X amount of euros. So that's the spot Forex. And whether somebody's actually trading or not, we have all participated in Forex market essentially when we travel. So if you have traveled to from the US to the Eurozone, any of the European countries, or a different country where you have to buy the local currency in order to buy stuff, then we have all participated in Forex in that sense.
So then how does a chemical engineer from India, a mother of, were you married at the time you transitioned from chemical engineering into Forex?
No, I was not married. Actually, I was in IT, but no, I was not married. I've been married for about 14 years now. So at the time, I wasn't.
Okay. So you've been in the Forex market. How long have you been trading?
Actually, it was interesting. I entered the Forex market right after the big financial crash in 2010. That was my first foray into the Forex market.
Wow, 2010. And how does something like that happen, Raman? Because you were a chemical engineer. So how do you go from that to Forex?
At the time, actually, I was running an IT consulting business, and things were going well. I was making good money, but the problem was I had no time. I was working nonstop. And I remember we had in 2009, actually, my mother-in-law passed away, and I had to go from Vancouver to Toronto, where my in-laws lived, and it was really bad because on the day of the funeral, one of my clients, basically they were on, I was on the phone with them because their entire network system went down, and they had several servers, and they had many employees that were just sitting around not doing anything, and the company was losing money by the minute because they still had to pay all the salaries of the people who were just sitting around waiting for the system to go up, and it was completely down. So here I had to, on one hand, it was a stressful time for my family. I had to support my husband, and there on the other hand, I was like, okay, I really need to take care of my business too, because otherwise I'm going to lose both. Although it wasn't as dire, but if you're not supporting your clients when they need support, in that kind of competitive market, you lose them. They will go somewhere else because it's one of those things where you need support when you need it. So I remember having to work with my employees. I had contractors who used to work for me, and I had to walk them through stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, this is not a scalable business, or it's not a business that I can do from anywhere. And I was really down for that, because it just looked, one, from optics, it looked bad. And then secondly, it was just bad timing. And I couldn't say no to either one. So I couldn't just say, I can't deal with this right now. I couldn't walk away from it. They had been my clients for a long time and they needed help. And that's the first time I remember thinking to myself, I cannot do this anymore. I got to look at something else. And then it so happens about a month or so later, I had a friend who came in and said to me, hey, there's this opportunity where you can make 84% return in a year. I'm like, that's crazy. I do not know anybody who will pay you 84% in terms of returns for a year. And she told me about this Forex, and I talked to my husband. He's like, don't do it. Don't do it. This is not going to work. And I'm like, no, let me look into that. As it turns out, she didn't really know Forex too well. She had just found this opportunity. And what happened was a company was accepting money so you could invest with them, and then they would pay you 84% return for the year. And of course, I put in $5,000, and every month they would send me statements, and there was interest, and my balance was growing. I had no idea where my money was, of course, but the statements showed that my balance was going up. So it's like, oh, this looks good. And then I put in another 5,000. And a few months later, SEC audited them, and they just closed shop and took everybody's money, including mine, and off they went. So I kind of lost the money there, but it got me on this path. So I was like, okay, if they can make that money, I want to learn how they are doing that, because I don't want to just give my money to someone. I want to know what's going on. So I started learning, or I started asking questions about it. My friend didn't know very much, so I started looking for courses on the topic. And it wasn't as widely available back then as it is now. We didn't really have that many YouTube channels and stuff that you could learn from. So I started taking courses, and I started learning more about it. So that's how I got started.
Wow. And I have heard other people say a situation like that, sometimes, depending on how you look at it, you lose money, but you start to investigate a little bit further into it. And that's when you make the decision, wait a minute, there's got to be something to this. If I know about it and I'm an educated investor, perhaps I can get the real information about it. Because a lot of times when people hear things like that, they automatically assume that can't possibly be true. And I actually did a post before you and I got on the call with that and said, just because you don't have the knowledge of something doesn't mean it didn't happen or it's not true. It just means you don't have the knowledge of it. So that's really smart of you to investigate a little further. I think that's where a lot of us miss opportunity, is because we just you just dismiss things so quickly that you don't even go and try to figure out whether there's a little bit of truth to what's being said. So I have to commend you for being that open-minded about it. And so what did that journey look like? Did you have to spend a lot of money?
I did spend a lot of money. Actually, the first course that I took was in Seattle at the time. I used to live in Vancouver. So it was just a couple hours worth of drive. So it was an easy one to do. But the funny thing was, the person who I took the course from, I realized didn't actually know that much. So it's the whole education around these things is interesting. A lot of people will say they do stuff, but they never show their results or anything. So you can't really tell what's what. So I do recommend it. So first of all, this is the truth, right? Trading is real. Big banks participate in. I used to work for one of the top 5 or the second largest bank in Canada. we had a Forex desk, right? We had trading desk, we had a whole branch or whole side of bank that was just to do with trading. So stock trading is, real, futures is real, options is real, Forex is real. They're all real. Now, just like anything else, we need to develop skills in order to understand the markets, right? Just like a person you wouldn't just jump into the plane and, try to fly the plane and then crash it and say, oh, this doesn't work. It's a learning process. It takes time, but it is real. A lot of people make money, a lot of banks and big hedge funds and stuff make a lot of money from these different asset classes.
So why do you think the banks don't talk about this? Because obviously the banks know about it. Obviously there are, well, I shouldn't even say obviously, because a lot of people don't understand, and if it's foreign to you, you don't really understand. But like one of the largest Forex traders in the world is Boeing, because of exchanging planes. Like if they sell a plane to anything outside of the United States, that money has to be converted to US dollars in that transaction. That's a foreign exchange, right?
Actually, to that point, if you look at any of the big multinational companies, they all are in Forex. And this is what I tell people. We as traders, especially retail traders, don't drive the market. It doesn't matter if I put on a few lots. It will not move the market. It's a $5 trillion a day market, right? It's a huge market. And the most of the money that's in the market comes from these big multinational companies. So when McDonald's has their locations around the world, all that money has to be brought back to the parent company, which is in the US, right? So they would have to exchange the money from the local currency to the US dollars. And when they are setting up these locations, they would then have to, McDonald's is not it's a franchise model, so it's not corporate owned, but let's say Starbucks, that's a corporate owned company. So when Starbucks goes into Japan, they can't use their US dollars. They would have to use US dollar and then convert that into Japanese yen in order to pay their suppliers, in order to pay for the construction, their employees. Everything has to be paid in the local currency. And when the profits are brought back home, they would have to be brought back home in US dollar, because yen has no value in the US economy. You can't go take your yen and buy something with that. So all multinational companies have to participate in the Forex market. And that's why there's so much money in this market. And aside from that, when we talk about Forex futures, a lot of companies are in the Forex or futures market, in the currency business, I should say, because when, let's say, somebody in the US buys, let's say, medical equipment from Japan, so they would then have to, so let's say it takes 6 months for that order to get delivered, because the machines have to be built and so forth. So it takes, let's say, a year or 6 months for a large delivery of orders, or let's say cars, for example, right? Everybody knows about cars, Japanese cars. So when that shipment comes over, we have to pay for that, or so whoever is purchasing it here in the US, or North America, I should say, we would have to pay in Japanese yen for that shipment. But what if you place the order today? You don't know what would happen in 6 months in terms of the price of that. So what if Japanese yen went up like crazy? Now, all of a sudden, your shipment, let's say it was worth $50,000, all of a sudden now it's worth $70,000. So just by waiting for an order, your shipment or your price that you're paying has gone up, because it would cost you more money to pay for the yen. So what a lot of companies do is they will buy futures. So futures market essentially is when you get a price, when you lock in a price for something. So you lock in today's dollar for a future delivery. So that's what a lot of companies do for equipment and large purchases, large oil and gas companies. All of these companies, they have to participate in the currency market, because they need to know how much it would cost them. Otherwise, it would break their budget and things would be too dynamic and they wouldn't be able to manage it. So a lot of the companies have these future contracts that they have to buy. So let's say if the cost goes up for the yen, but they have this future contract that offsets it so that they are break even.
So I would say that listening to you and your explanation, and you know something about all markets because they tend to intersect, is what I'm hearing from you.
That's very true, especially right now, if we take a look at Forex. So for example, when the stock market goes down, our Japanese yen goes up. There's an inverse relationship between that. And that's part of the reason why I look at this. Also, when the oil price goes up, Canadian dollar goes up, right? So all these things are interconnected. Copper goes up, Australian dollar goes up. So it makes sense for us to know about the overall market. It's different for stocks because stocks, you're just looking at what happened in the company, right? And you're also looking at what happened in the economy for that particular, wherever the company is located. But for currencies, there's a lot of interconnectedness in the market.
So what do you like most about Forex? What is it that you like most about trading Forex?
I actually started with options. That was the first thing I started trading. My husband used to play around with options, so he got me going with options. This is when I first wanted to learn about trading Forex. He was like, no, here, learn options. It's easier and it's better. I just found it to be too slow. I like action. I'm a very, I have this need for action, and I find with the Forex market being open all the time, 24 hours a day, there's an opportunity to get involved in the market anytime you want. Of course, now with futures being available around around for 24 hours as well, that's not the case anymore. You can participate in the market in futures as well, stock futures and so forth. But overall, I just like the movement of the price. So
I tell people this, because you are in our group and on our website, Trade All Markets. And when I get questions, I was just interviewed by a gentleman the other day, and I asked them questions about what you just said about your personality, because over time, it's great when everybody learns a little bit, becomes as knowledgeable as you. But starting out, what I like about what we do, that what you're a part of, is that we give people a little taste of each market so that they can decide which one fits their personality. Because that's really what you want starting out. I think you want something that fits your personality, because then you're going to stick with it. Would you say that is a lot what you find with people coming to you to learn to trade?
Yes, and I think, but I find, so what you're saying is correct. I think it's good to know what your personality is and pick a medium that would be compatible with your personality. But I find sometimes people will come into this expecting quick results. So that's not true. Just because the market is open 24 hours a day and 5 days a week does not mean that money can be made at any given time, but it really is dependent on the personality in terms of what you pick. So for example, you can pick, driving a taxi, a car, versus driving an airplane, being a pilot. But it would really, if you have fear of heights, you should not be trying to become a pilot. So it is, so similar case here as well. It is best to understand the dynamics of the different markets and then choose something that is suited for your personality. And then taking it one step further, also pick a strategy that is suitable to your personality, because I find people will go into scalping the markets, and not everybody has that right mentality or the psychology or just the personality to scalp the markets. You have to make decisions very, very fast if you're scalping. Whereas if you're trading on a daily chart, for example, you can take your time, or if you're trading an hourly chart, you can take your time. So also picking a strategy that would would be suitable for your personality is very important, because even in Forex, there are so many different strategies and a lot of them work. So I can't say that my strategy is better than somebody else. It's just what do you see? What can you work with? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I totally 100% agree with that. Like with anything, I think my son was telling me how he was making a lot of money doing Instacart, especially now during this pandemic. And he said, "Oh, Mom, you should check this out. You can just make some extra money." And I said, "Okay, well, number one, I don't like driving. That's number one. Number two, I don't like shopping." So I don't care how much money you're making doing this right now. I don't have the patience for. I don't shop a lot. I'm not a shopper. I mean, when I go to the store, I pretty much know what I'm going to get, and I go get it, and I'm out of there. So I think that if people look at the aspect as you had just described it, then you're going to find something that you will stick with for the long time, because it'll be more compatible to your personality. And maybe you won't have that personality that we see a lot of people have, is that quick, fast money that people are looking for. So with that, I want to lead into, how long did it take you to become proficient and a profitable trader? What is the amount of time that you put in to really get comfortable with your trading?
So I think this one is, it takes a while. So that's the first thing. So what we find is, and this is what happened with me as well, you kind of dip your toes in the market. So you kind of do it on the side, you're learning as you're trying to do stuff. And then over time, you become better at it. So the way I would suggest somebody go about this would be to first have a demo account. So try it out, check out a few videos, free courses, and so forth. Then have a demo account, which is virtual currency. And then once you find that you're able to do that well, you're able to be profitable in that, then go to a small account. Just like if you got your driver's license, you wouldn't go with a Mercedes as your first purchase. You would go with something that's maybe a second-hand used car first, and then see how competent you're at driving. And you are not going to be that competent right off the bat. You just are not, even though you have gone through all your lessons, you have learned your manual, you know everything about your car, you know everything about the rules. You just will not be, you just won't be competent. It comes with experience. So it took me a while. I did it on a part-time basis for a few years. And then I had a small account, so I grew that. And then there was an opportunity. So we ended up moving to Toronto. So I sold my business and moved there. And that's the first time I actually went full-time with it. And then there were other things that came into, we were trying to have kids and stuff. And this was stressful because I was trading too much. I used to sleep with a computer beside my bed. And that was not conducive to having kids. So I ended up going back to work. I was working for the bank at that point. So I did that for a few years. And now for the last 4 or 5 years, I've just been full-time trading. And in terms of competency, what I have found is there are different levels of competency. So when we first start driving, for example, we can manage a car. And if we have been driving for a year, for example, you are a lot further ahead than somebody who just got their driver's license. But if you look at somebody who has been driving a taxi for several years, that person knows way more about everything to do with driving than somebody like me who only drives my kids around and go to the grocery store and so forth, just because they have more time under their belt. So more time leads to more experience, which means you're learning more skills. So, so it's the same thing with trading as well. So when you first start trading, you will learn stuff. And then when you start applying it to the markets, you'll be like, well, it looked really good when I was doing this on the charts, but now it doesn't work that way, because you'll have a perfect setup and then market goes crazy and does something different, right?
Yes.
And it's hard to anticipate. Like, you can learn stuff, but then market is dynamic. It's like you're going on the highway and all of a sudden somebody loses their tire, the whole wheel, and then there's a crash in front of you. you have to adjust to that. That was not taught in your driving lessons, but that's real life. And I find trading is like that as well. So you learn, you keep on learning. And even now, I feel like I learn more stuff every single day. This whole pandemic is a completely different dynamics in the market than it was 2 years ago, for example. So we're always
That is a
learning.
great, and that's a great analogy. I'm going to use that one. Like, it's almost like the one Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get smacked in the face or something like that. It's
Yeah.
kind of the same thing, but I like that. You're driving on the car because you're right. When we do learn how to drive, we're not taught that. Nobody says, well, when you get in this situation, what are you going to do? Because it's almost like unforeseen. We don't know what could happen. And you're 100% right. We're seeing a lot of that, where somebody might have been a technical trader. Now we have so many crazy pandemics things going on with the fundamentals that you can't just depend on the technical side of trading anymore. And so what made you decide to start teaching?
Actually, for me, I started teaching because I wanted to get better. And one of the things that I learned early on in life was that it's easier to learn, or you learn more when you're teaching. So for me, I wanted to get really good at it. And I found that I was kind of playing around with the market still, even though I was trading full time. I was not giving it the same type of attention that I should have been giving. So I
Mm-hmm.
figured I will just get a group of people around myself and I will teach. And in teaching, you have to know your stuff before you can teach. So that was my reason for teaching.
So do you feel like anyone can learn?
I really do believe so, yes. Just like anything else. So if you want to be an astronaut, it's just a matter of learning those skills to be an astronaut. So this is the same thing as well. Also, although I have to say it's not as difficult as being an astronaut, but it's same as any skill. I think a lot of these skills are teachable skills.
So you had mentioned earlier about people being impatient. What do you think is the biggest challenge for new traders?
The biggest challenge I see is the impatience. I find, so I will get questions like this. For example, a guy came to me and said, can I make money while I'm learning? Well, and my answer was no. You can make virtual money. Yes, you can trade in your demo account, and I highly recommend that you do that. Every time I teach a lesson, there's an assignment that you need to do. So you need to practice that. But in real life, the thing is, what happens is when you are practicing something, you don't have any emotions around that. But as soon as you do the same maneuver in the live markets, all of a sudden there's more emotions that come into play. Same thing applies to basketball players, for example. So when you're shooting hoops in your driveway, it's so easy. But as soon as you get into a tournament,
Right.
things change. It may be the exact same thing. You may be the only person standing there on the free throw line, and yet you miss the shot, right? Because
Yeah.
it's different dynamics. Like your psychology is different, the pressure is more. So, first of all, I do not recommend coming into the market with that expectation that it's easy money, it's get rich quick, I can make money tomorrow, and I can make gazillions of dollars. It doesn't work that way. The best way to approach the markets is to come in with an open mind. Okay, this is doable. Somebody's making money from this, so I can too, right? So it's just a matter of learning the way they are doing it and trying it. So that's the first thing. And then the second would be having the patience. So if somebody told you, you become a doctor, you spend 5 years to get your degree, medical degree, and then you will start making $300,000 a year or $500,000 a year, whatever the amount is. Wouldn't you just be okay with sitting tight for a few years so that you can make the $500,000 for the rest of your life? I would be okay with that, right? So
Yeah.
it's the same thing where you have to put that into focus. It's not how much money can I make today, but let's take a look at return on investment over the course of our career. I remember actually when I first wanted to do my IT degree, I used to actually, so when I first moved to Canada here, I, of course, did not listen to my parents who wanted me to go to school and all of that. I was too keen on making money. So I started doing odd jobs and I had no skills. I was 20, I had no skills. And I was doing my bachelor's at the time. So I hadn't really graduated at that point. So my parents let me make my mistakes. So I was doing crazy, like I was pumping gas, I was working as a waitress. And here my parents were telling me, no, you just go do a 4-year degree and then you can, do this and that. And I didn't listen to them. And of course, then I had to pay the price for that. Um, and then a year into it, I decided, okay, this sucks. I can't do this anymore. I'm getting paid the minimum wage and it's not getting me anywhere. So I decided to go do an IT degree. At that point, it was $12,000 for a 1-year program. So anybody that I told that to in my friend circle said that was the stupidest thing that I was thinking of doing. They did not agree with that. It was a lot of money. And of course, I had no credit. I had no money. And I was not going to get a loan because they would not give me a loan because I was working full time. So it was like a catch-22. Um, so basically the point is everybody told me it was a bad idea, but then I sat down and thought about it. And I think there was one person who I spoke to and who actually put it into these words for me. He said, look at the return on investment over the course of your career. So
Yes.
and I have to say that $12,000 investment has paid me huge dividends. I was making in my last job, I was making more than 6 figures. Like for the last 10 years, I had been role. So it's not it. We have to look at it in terms of return on investment, but over the long term. So we have to be
Yes,
willing to do that.
that's an important part that I think a lot of people miss. And this particular industry, not just Forex, but all of them, is the only industry, I think about it, having been self-employed as long as I have, it's the only industry I know where people are constantly flashing and showing how much money they made. And it's like, that is like, I think that might be why it has the quick, fast, um, the kind of enticement, I guess I should say, because people are so want to show people how much money they made, but you don't see a doctor or a dentist or like this whole online world seems to be where people think the only way they can get you to take it seriously is to show you how much money they're making. And that comes at a price, in my opinion, with a lot of
Yeah,
people not taking it as serious as it should be. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I think, you know, also we see a lot of movies, The Wolf of Wall Street, and all these high-flying stockbrokers and people like that with fancy cars and fancy houses. So that's different. They work for big institutions where they get paid a lot of money, and they don't have to risk their own money. But when it comes to reality, if you really look at a normal trader, they don't live a flashy lifestyle. So all these people flashing stuff, I find the more they do that, the less money they actually make. And it's the people who are, the millionaire next door. It's the people, the everyday people who live normal life doing normal stuff. Those are the people who actually make money. So a lot of people that I have are good traders that I have met, they have hardly ever been flashy. And that's been my personal experience.
I agree with you. I say that from having, again, being self-employed 30 years, there's a lot to be said for that. Just the fact that I've been able to not, but I don't have to show you anything for that. But it's very interesting. I'm glad to get your take on that. I think that's an important piece that people should pay attention to. So In closing, Raman, I want you to tell everybody why they should take your class. I've known about, you've got some of the best videos, I have to say, on YouTube. You do great analysis of the market. It's a very intelligent uh, information for people to learn. Like I said, I love that you do that. You do these videos like every day. They're amazing, that are on YouTube for anybody that wants to take a look at trading with Venus. She's got some great content. But can you tell us why someone should take your class? What type of trader are you? Just this is your opportunity for people to come into Trade All Markets and take the opportunity to learn with you.
For sure. So first of all of us, everybody who teaches has a different skill set, in the sense that we all have different strengths. My strength tends to be more in terms of explaining stuff. I'm very good at analogies, and I tend to uncomplicate complicated stuff. So I tend to put stuff in very simple terms, and it almost looks too easy when I start talking about stuff, but it is easy. That's the whole thing. I don't think we need like flashy indicators and 20 different things crowding the charts. I think trading can be very simple if we want it to be simple. Sometimes we just get antsy. We think like something should be happening every minute of the day, and that takes away from it. So I tend to make complicated topics very simple. That I find is one of my strengths. And second is, I do like to look at different markets. I do analysis. I have tons of videos, like you said, on the YouTube channel. So you can definitely check it out to figure out what my style is. I'm a price action trader, so I don't depend on too many indicators. Not that indicators are wrong. It's kind of like driving an automatic car versus a standard car. Although I drive an automatic car, but I find trading, as far as trading goes, I like price action. I need to know what's happening, and so I can take my own decision as opposed to depending on an indicator, which generally is lagging, to make that decision for me. So so those are a couple of different things. But I'm also very down to earth type of trader. So I usually tell it as it is. I don't hype stuff up. And I think I'm kind of making a name for myself in terms of being an authentic trader. So I tend to show things the way they are. I've been doing this Turning Pro Challenge for the last couple of years, where I show my account. And I find not very many people will actually show their real account. They will, they'll show all kinds of fake stuff. But I tend to show my real account and just show people what it is, because there is money to be made in the market, but it is not get rich quick scheme. So those are my couple of points there.
Yeah, very peaceful. You're very peaceful. That's what attracted me to you before I even created Trade Off Markets. I was following you and I was watching you, and I was, wow, she's just so peaceful and so calm. And, where you kind of look at a person and you say, wow, a lot of people are attracted to lifestyles. I'm more attracted to that being, if that makes sense. Like you can get a way a person is just from the peace that they radiate out to the world. And you definitely do that. I think people will really enjoy if they go onto YouTube and take a look at Trading with Venus. Very peaceful, not very hype, not hype at all. Just kind of, this is my life, this is what I do, just pay attention. So you get a lot of knowledge from watching your videos. I love the weekly report that you put out. That is fantastic. You're just doing amazing jobs. And we are very happy and excited to have you with us. We're new in the way that we're getting the information out. Our goal is to become the Udemy of trading, and to put some of the best content out in that area. So we are very grateful to have you with us, Raman.
Thank you very much, Robin. Just one more thing I wanted to mention. So right now, during the pandemic, I am offering 60% off of my courses right now. So if you take my Learn to Trade Forex course, which basically takes you from the very beginning, basics of Forex to more complicated strategies, that one normally it's priced at $497. Right now, it's for $197, so you get $300 off. And this is just to support everybody. I find trading, doesn't matter what kind of trading it is, options, futures, Forex, trading really is a recession-proof business, because it doesn't matter, especially with Forex, doesn't matter if the market is going up or going down. You can make money both ways. With a stock trading, it's slightly different. You tend to be long, but futures, options, all of these, we can go short, we can go long, we can hedge, we can go in both directions. So this is, I'm noticing as we are going through this, the world coming to a standstill, my work in itself is still the same. I still trade. I still do the same thing that I would do. I mean, I'm on Facebook a little too much, but aside from that, I still do the same thing. I do my analysis, I take my trades. It's life as usual in that sense. So I tend to downplay things a little bit, but you know what? I think you're doing a great job where what I lack in that, I think you make up for it. So I think you're doing a wonderful job of bringing this out to everybody. So thank you for
thank
that.
you so No, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And again, listen to what Raman is telling you, that this is huge, that she has discounted her courses 60%. Whereas the one thing that she said during the call about even herself not having the time to do certain things prior to getting into this industry, this is what I would hear all from everybody. I don't have time. I don't have time. Well, guess what? We have now found time, haven't we? We have found time. And to help with that, she's done a great thing by saying, hey, I'm going to even help you with the money side of this. Okay. So I would say, we have no idea this new normal we're dealing with right now. It was totally unexpected for us. But here's the thing. Just like she talked about 2008, 2009, what we had going on, because we do always have these cycles of things. The key to all this is that if you stay ready, you never have to get ready. Meaning, if you are prepared or able to adapt is probably one of the biggest things with people. You gotta be able to adapt. You gotta be able to pivot. And so here is an opportunity. What better opportunity for you to be able to take this downtime, which is, it has its moments, but you know what? We just have to make the best of all situations. So here's an opportunity for you to take that time, not have to pay the full price, and to have something that you can learn, that you can carry with you whenever things get back to what your normal may be. So once again, I want to thank Raman for being on this call. Our job is to bring you the best in content and to have you listen to the experts directly. She is inside the group, Trade All Markets, as are our other experts, and you can ask them questions. They are there. They will answer your questions. They will make sure that you are getting what it is that you need in order to get what you want out of this. So once again, Raman, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be on our call and to help us give the best that is available for anybody who wants it. We appreciate you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Robin.
If you want consistency in your trading, we invite you to join our daily market analysis calls, where we provide the levels to find the best entries and targets on an intraday basis. For a 1-week free trial, please visit www.tradingwithvenus.com. Thanks for joining us today. With much gratitude, your show host, Raman Gill.